This is the getting started video of finalRender for Maya. In this video we will discuss the supported lights in finalRender and how we can use them. Before we do so, let's have a look at the scene. We have these asset from Maya and we just imported it into a scene and we assigned a gray material to the object. Let's have a test render, and finalRender is already installed. We have another video that explains you how to select finalRender, so if you want to check out, go there first. Now we compare it to a Maya software render, and as you can see, finalRender is creating exactly the same output. Now let's just, for the fun of it, have a look at Arnold render, and as you can see, there's no output at all. Just to confirm that we are not imagining things, here's finalRender again, so it is actually rendering and working. We all know why Arnold is not able to render the scene, because of one simple setting that is not supported. And this is also important to know and understand. It's the option Enable Default Light. finalRender is able to actually use this setting and properly render the scene. So I turned off the Enable Default Light, and as you would expect it when you change your renderer to Maya software, for example, and we render again, also Maya software renderer is now no longer showing the rendering because there's no lights. We are not creating default lights. When I turn on Enable Default Light, Maya software is rendering again. Same is true for finalRender. So keep that in mind when you're rendering. finalRender is well integrated into the Maya workflow, so all the settings in Maya, you want to check them first, because finalRender is supporting a lot of features in Maya. Okay, let's move on to the lights. Similar to the settings in the rendering, we also do have a lot of additional attributes that are attached to objects and lights and so on. But before we do that, let me just show you something really unique in finalRender. I'll create a plane so that we have something to catch our light and shadows on the floor. And we go into the camera view just to show what we have here. So we have this ground plane, and that's catching our shadows and light. So we're still using default lights, and the great thing is about default lights, whenever there are no lights at all in the scene, we will get the default lights automatically. Let's see. As I said, we just created the plane, and on the right side in the attributes editor you can see there's a special finalRender attributes. We have a lot of extra attributes. We are not going to explain them right now, but the one important one I want to show you is the geometry shader we have created for Maya. And the geometry shader is the unlimited floor shader, so that's a procedural ground floor shader. And the great and amazing thing about that is it's an unlimited ground. So it's a procedural ground, so the renderer actually intersects with this object. It has unlimited resolution, and obviously all the other renderers are not able to support that. So that's a finalRender specific feature. So even when we go now into Arnold and let's just see the alpha channel, you see it's just showing us our polygon plane we created, and finalRender is replacing this polygon plane with a procedural unlimited ground floor. Keep that in mind. There's a lot of additional attributes and things that are in the scene when you use finalRender. Okay, let's start with lights. The first light we want to check out is the ambient light. That's more like a constant light, so it illuminates all of the scene regardless of the normal vector or where it's placed or where it comes from. So Arnold isn't supporting it, but finalRender supports the ambient light. Let's have a check with Maya software, and Maya software the same. Keep in mind, Maya can't do the unlimited floor ground. That's a feature of finalRender. So finalRender is supporting these ambient light, and all the attributes you have here, like color, intensity, and all the other settings, are directly supported. Let me just change the color, for example, and let's just do another rendering, and we see the color, intensity. So all of these parameters are naturally working, so there's nothing you need to learn new, or there's no special light source or shaders or nodes you have to create. It just works right out of the box with standard Maya features. And that's also nice and good when you import scenes and try to adjust them to finalRender. So the next light we want to check out is our directional light. For that, let me just turn on the light in the viewport so that we can adjust our shadow and direction a little bit. The directional light is like a sunlight. It's a distant light. All rays are parallel, so the position of the light itself doesn't matter at all because it comes from an infinite distance and all rays are parallel, which usually create nice straight shadows. And the same here, you can adjust the intensity of the light. All the Maya parameters just work one-to-one as you would expect it. You can increase intensity and all this stuff. So it's a no-brainer. Just use the tools and lights that are in. There's no need to create any extra lights or learn new things. Just use what you know from Maya. And same here, Maya Software Renderer is obviously supporting its own light sources, and so is finalRender. And to get the shadows, let's just turn on the ray tracing in the Maya Software Renderer so we get our shadows visible even with Maya Software Renderer. And you see it takes a little bit longer. And now we have the nice sharp sunlight shadows here. So same with finalRender. Keep in mind we have the unlimited ground floor plane. And let's see if Arnold is supporting the direct light. Yes, Arnold supports the direct light. So that's a good thing. So let's have a look at some other parameters we might want to change or create. Keep in mind, right now we are not doing global illumination or such things. We're just exploring the lights and the features supported by the lights. So there's this feature in Maya called light angle, and that's also supported by finalRender. As you can see in the back, we have now these blurry shadows, and the smaller the light angle, the less blurrier the shadows become. So that kind of simulates an area light effect, but from a parallel or a distant light. You can increase the shadow rays here. And you see it also has an effect, it gets smoother now. So keep in mind, finalRender actually works like the renderer in Maya works. So the features you already know, the feature you have used for years and years, they just work with finalRender. Let's have a look with Arnold. Arnold doesn't support this light angle. For whatever reason, we are not going to explore why, so keep that in mind. finalRender is a really nicely perfect integrated renderer in Maya. So it will help you a lot when you have existing scenes and want to convert them to just a better image quality, to a physically accurate result. It's just a breeze when you can just reuse your assets and don't lose all the work you have by creating new nodes or shade networks and all this kind of stuff. So we have these additional attributes, as I already said, so we can adjust finalRender specific parameters if we wanted. We can override the shadows, we can do all kinds of effects. But we are not going into deep right now what the finalRender settings are. We wanted to explore the lights. The next light type is a point light. That's more like behaving like a light bulb. So it's radiating all around the point. And we can move it around as well and just have a render. So that's finalRender. Maya software. Keep in mind, in Maya we don't have the unlimited plane, so that looks a little bit strange without the shadows in the back. And let's compare to finalRender. So that's working as expected. It works as it is intended in Maya. Same deal here. Intensities, light, colors, shadows, all this stuff works in finalRender as well. The ray trace shadows as well here. Can increase that, and then we also have the soft shadows. So all this works just fine with finalRender. Let's delete that light and adjust a little bit more the other lights. The next light is the spotlight, and with the spotlight you create this nice theatrical cone or point light, or however you want to call it. So that's a pretty powerful and common light source you have in Maya, with a lot of power to create and illuminate your scene. And finalRender supports it really nice and well. Same deal again, you can adjust the intensities, use what you already know. Increase the power of your light, change the color of your light. All this stuff naturally works. Even if you want, add some decay, so the light gets dimmer by distance. And this is also supported, so you can create really nice, realistic looking lights with full control. And the cool thing is, when you compare it to the viewport display, it's actually there. It's similar intensities, so you can easily predict what you see in your viewport is also what you get in your rendering. So that helps you in setting up your lights really easy and fast. And the result is the same in the Maya software renderer, just as for comparison. So the light spotlight is fully supported by finalRender. The feature, the penumbra feature, that gives you a little bit of a soft edge on your cone, is also supported. So that works the same like in the Maya software renderer. And we do also have the light drop off from the center ray of your light to the outside. And that gives you a nice fall off. And in combination with the penumbra, you can get really nice effects here. The cone angle is also supported, so all the parameters from the lights, as you would expect it, it works. So that's a huge advantage of finalRender. It's a perfectly integrated rendering solution for Maya. It just behaves naturally as it were part of the render of the application of Maya. Okay, let's move along and check out some other parameters. Some more advanced stuff in here. How about the light effects? Would be cool if that were supported, and we can try out. And yes, actually it is supported. We do support volumetric light effects. So we can have these light effects, adjust the density a little bit. So here we get our character back, and we see the nice volume shadows as well. The shadows cast in the volume light. You can see how fast and smooth it works. We can also use the extra features like the fast drop off and all this stuff. So that's a real powerful thing. It's just there, you use it, and it gives you really nice and fast results. Let's go back to the fog controls and the light controls. So let's make it a little bit more tighter. I don't like that spread out. Let's make it just a bit more tighter, and you can see now our volumetric light effect is restricted to this cone. So a very powerful feature here we have with the spotlight. Explore it, try it out. It's really a powerful feature we have here. The next light we want to check out is the area light, which is also supported. So we can just move that up. And now let's just scale a little bit the area light. And all these functions you have here, they are supported in finalRender. You can scale up your area light. So that gives you the area where the light is placed. Let me just choose the top view. Yeah, let's place it like here, like so. Go back, and yeah, I like that. Let's just do a render here. And now we get these beautiful, beautiful area shadows that are dependent on the size of our area light. For the shadows, we have extra controls in here. The ray trace shadow controls here do not play any role, because for that area type, because finalRender is using a physically correct area shadow, you need to go into the finalRender attributes down to the shadows, and there you have your shadow samples. It's a highly efficient area shadow that renders really, really fast and well. So even with 64 samples for your shadows alone, you can see we get a nice smooth result in a very short amount of time. And all the other extra parameters here you can choose and use with the area light. And we also support light portals and sky portals that are important for openings. Another cool feature is the override light scale, because you never know what happens in Maya. You can do so many things, and if you're somehow stuck in Maya, right now we use a size of 1 and 1, which gives us a point light again, and that makes it a sharp shadow. So let's say 30-30, that's a nice area. And now you can see the soft shadows spread out in all directions. So you have full control here without, now the scale in Maya doesn't matter anymore. And now let's just do it in one axis. So we get like a neon tube light or something, very narrow in one direction. So the area shadow changes. But if you don't want that, you can also control everything in Maya. So now we are getting the scale of the area light from Maya again. So same deal here, finalRender tightly integrated in Maya. It behaves like natural Maya features or functions. The next thing I want to just talk a little bit about it. We are not going into depth here. We have a special material here we assigned right now. We're using a stack material. That's a physically accurate material, and it uses finalRender's unique way of creating physically based materials. So we have these stacks. You can have as many diffuse or specular levels as you want. You can have as many reflection levels as you want. So you can stack them up. And it will always be physically accurate calculated. So energy balancing is always correct and right. And you can add metal flakes, and everything will be treated as a layer. And then the material will be compiled on the fly in finalRender to create your shader. So you just stack them up with drag and drop. It's a very powerful feature to create physically based materials. And I just recreated the original material that was there with all the original AI shaders, and now we have a physical material of finalRender in there. I hope you enjoyed this video. Keep in mind, these are just getting started videos. They are not in depth of each functionality. We will have more videos to show you. Check out our webpage and forums for more information about the open beta. Thank you for your interest, and I hope to see you around.